Welcome back, everybody, here at the Arcane Archive. We have another rousing round of incredibly delicious Cautionary Chronicles for you today. That's right. Sammy, what is kind of our vibe today for the Cautionary Chronicles that we're going to be telling our salacious audience?
You know, we went a little bit more lighthearted. Our last couple have had some very unfortunate stories, or just some down moments.
You know, a bit of rage, but a bit of just, more somber tones overall. So, like,
I will say, this is a bit more petty, a bit more lighthearted, a bit more.
I mean, don't be afraid now. There absolutely will still be some of those rage-inducing moments, no doubt. But yes, absolutely, it definitely is deliberately picked and chosen to be some more lighthearted, kind of funny, jovial. Well, still cringy, of course, but I overall entertaining, hopefully, is the intention here. That being said, as always, feel free, please, to like the video, comment down below about any of your personal experiences in your D&D sessions, or even maybe just questions you might have about D&D and sessions and stuff. Honestly, it helps us out a lot. We appreciate it. Be sure to like or subscribe and share the channel, as always. Again, it would just help us out immensely, and it would be super appreciated. But with that being said, let's just go ahead and dive right on in here, right? Let's get it started. So, to start us off, today's first tale is known as All Aboard by OP World Gone Away. TLDR, the DM told the story all by themselves, and we left, which already gives you quite the foreshadowing for what we're going to be seeing here. During a somewhat heated discussion a while ago, I mentioned that I really hate railroading in TTRPGs. The guy I was talking to said that it is healthy and sometimes necessary. Well, be that as it may, I still find it really annoying. This story is kind of why. So, 3rd edition had just come out recently, and while trying to learn the system, a friend of mine and I found someone at the local gaming store that was willing to run a game in 3rd edition. Though this guy admitted that they didn't really understand all of the rules, neither did we, so that seemed like it'd be a win-win for all of us that we could learn together. Now, this guy was weird. Not creepy weird, but just this heavy-set, awkward sort of dude that liked to go off on tangents here and there and explain things in more detail than they needed to be. See, there's nothing admittedly wrong about that, right? That's kind of what we do here, right? We do that, so seemingly everything seems relatively okay, on the offset. Continuing, though, he always talked louder than just about anyone, almost like he didn't have an inside voice. He spoke in a deep and theatrical manner, and he admitted that he was a theater major. He was such a dramatic role player that we just couldn't resist. Now, we roll up characters, we introduce ourselves, and right off the bat, he shovels us into a conflict, a hot opening where we have to flee a currently active burning village. No explanation, just that it was urgent. And he described it like something out of an intense scene in a Disney movie, so he had our undivided attention. While we are running through the village, he rather intensely explains that we get swept up in a group of people running through the center of town, and graphically explains every NPC in this group dying from falling debris or burning objects falling from the sky. And now this goes on until it's just us left. And he explains that we run straight into the woodline of the forest just outside of town. I was about ready to ask if we could hide and look back at the town to see where all this was coming from. But before the words could even escape my mouth, the DM speaks again and says, "You all know deep in your hearts that this is the work of the Dark Lord, Xandafar." He really didn't explain who this guy was or how we even knew who he was. But to be honest, I'm not really sure if I spelled his name correctly either. But he told us that that's who was responsible. He then says that we start to run through the woods to get to some other town. One of the other players then pipes up, well, wait a second, what's going on exactly? Like, do we get a chance to, "The Dark Lord can only be slain with the sword of light, and you remember where it is kept." He then explains that we run through the forest and rather energetically describes fantastic creatures that try to attack us, like stuff far higher level than any of us. It made me think that he opened the monster manual and just randomly picked creatures to use for a scripted scene. Not necessarily a problem by itself, but the execution was certainly rather strange. He does not have us roll initiative, instead saying that my character suddenly decapitates a griffin with a counterattack. And at that point, I kind of have to interrupt and say, do I get to roll for that? I mean, I'm not even a fighter. I think I'd probably cast, there is no time for spells. You will need them later, he rebuttals. Okay. Maybe he was going to give me a bit of spotlight for my sorcerer to shine. Kind of weird that I decapitated a griffin, but I'll let that go because it was awesome, right? So while he continues to ramble on and on about what each of our characters are doing during combat, instead of, actually asking us and allowing us to roll for anything, I look to my left at my friend who was just staring in awe and shaking his head. This was actually really weird. For the next 15 minutes or so, the guy carries on about how we kill all the monsters in the forest and head off to the city beyond. And the people greet us with open arms, giving us food and treating our wounds and accepting us entirely. At this point, one of the players simply crumples up their character sheet, grabs their stuff, stands up, and walks straight out of the room without another word. The DM loudly announces that their character has dropped dead from a heart attack and continues to describe our interactions with the townspeople. So I finally pipe up again. Is this just the intro? Yes, it is. Okay. Well, with that, we let him go on for about another 2 minutes or so, and then my friend and I look at each other. I fold up my sheet, grab my stuff, and I stand up. My friend grabs his stuff and leaves his character sheet on the table, and we both depart. Where are you going? He screams at us. We turn and we say, well, we're supposed to meet someone for pizza. We'll see you later, my friend says. As we leave the room, he continues to minister the story to the one lone player left, and we just go out for something to eat. The whole thing lasted maybe half an hour. But every single time a DM pulls some railroading gimmick or shenanigans on a party, all I can think of is this guy. Whenever I read someone else's story about that kind of behavior, this guy's face is always the stand-in for that particular DM. I wonder if he was doing it on purpose, or if he was just messing with us and had like a hidden camera somewhere or something. Honestly, the part that really bothered me the most and kept me in it for as long as I did was the fact that, well, he legitimately was an incredible storyteller with a good imagination and a real way with words, honestly. The imagery that he employed was something to which I aspire, but that really does need to be tempered with letting the players actually, I don't know, play the damn game. Like, I will admit there was slight exaggeration with the all caps, but it's the closest analog that I could show for how this guy came off. Edit text message transcript from this morning. Me. Hey, you remember that game run by the big loud guy that we basically didn't get to play and we all left? Player? Yeah. How did that end up? Player, who was the last one standing. Didn't miss much. He talked for another half an hour, and when I finally could act, I was at the entrance of a big dungeon. Session ended a few minutes later and never went back. End post. Wow. So yeah, we're off to a fantastic start, y'all. This guy, as I guess, he is truly the epitome of, bro, why didn't you just go and write a book? Like,
yeah, I do love
that's what he did. That's literally what he just did here. He just wrote a book for them.
I love the comment appraising a messed up situation. Like, man, I know deep in my heart this is some Xandafar bullshit right here. I'm gonna start saying this at every inconvenience.
Dude, this is some great. I mean, honestly, you can just any shit you can just pin on Xandafar. He's like, Xandafar. Like, you literally just end up walking in, like, you're feeling really hungry, right? You go into the kitchen, you open your refrigerator, there's nothing in the refrigerator, you're just like, Xandafar. Like, it's like a real Seinfeld, Jerry and Newman moment where it's just like anything, he's just like, Newman. Where they just be like, Xandafar.
The Dark Lord Xandafar at it again.
Oh my goodness. This guy, like, oh Lord. Look, I get it. You know, he did say that he was kind of new as well, and he didn't know the rules and such. But I mean, I feel like anybody who knows anything about D&D at all, like, would have at least some capacity to know that the whole point is it's a game. It's not just a literal narrated story that the GM tells to the players. Like the whole point is for the players to act and play the game. I mean, I don't think we can hear you, but I think you're muted.
Some people don't necessarily stick to that, which is unfortunate. Like the idea is great. Like the willingness to tell a story and be creative is awesome, but
I mean, even the OP consistently reiterates like the story was like incredible. You know, it's just they didn't actually get to play at all, which is that's kind of the point. Like they didn't come there. If anything, if they wanted to just listen to a story, they could just, you know, you could just download one off of Audible or
yeah.
whatever. Like you want to play the game. And while this guy, like, I don't know if I can.
It's always the fucking theater majors too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, again, I get it. I've been there. Like I said, a lot of this guy I can absolutely like relate to. I've been being like, yeah, you know, we are quite boisterous and loud, and we love description and everything. But like that is the thing too. Like, I don't necessarily think that I could say this guy had bad intentions. I think like the GM, like I think he got maybe a little bit too caught up in his own, you know, supply, you know, that he just he completely forgot the entire point is to play a game. So it's like, hey, you know, I love the passion, I love the enthusiasm, but he does need to kind of mention or he does need to kind of remember the entire point, which definitely got lost a bit in his own sauce. But you know, that being the case, unless you have anything else we want to talk about with this one, why don't we go ahead and head off to the next one, which is a real damn doozy. When we saw this particular post, I still don't even understand how this even happens, regardless of some of the circumstances here. This just seems completely insane to me. But Sam, would you like to go ahead and take it away and tell the audience what we're talking about here?
Sure, the title of this one is 20-player one-shot devolves into Battle Royale. Yes, you heard correctly, 20 players.
I don't even know how that's possible. I just don't. I really don't.
This starts out fantastic. So I've never DM'd before prior to this game. I had been a player for years and I wanted to see if I could create a good world and compelling adventure, so I decided to run a Halloween one-shot at the local game store. I obviously invited my usual D&D friends, ended up creating this fey world full of lore, but decided to focus on this haunted castle that was cursed due to its connection to the Shadowfell. I had cleared my whole schedule for this campaign. I came in at 10 a.m. and was prepared to go all day. My friends showed up and started making characters, and as they did, we noticed that the other table was empty. And we came to figure out that for whatever reason, the other DM who usually runs games canceled his session. So as we started our intro into the world and castle, other players began coming to our table, disappointed and asking me if they could play. So I just kind of had an open door policy, and the other DM's players came to play, as did other people who just wanted to play D&D. By the time the party was ready to explore, we had 20 players.
I don't know how this works. Like,
so you get like 3 minutes of playtime in a 6-hour-long session.
I don't even know how. Like, just a slight aside. Like, if he's a new GM, even as a new GM, it's like, okay, like you did some research beforehand, right? Like you had to have, because you apparently made this whole world, and you're just like, oh yeah, no, like believe me, when I was first starting out too, I also had like a much more open kind of policy. I'm like, if people want to play, yeah, sure. And even now, I'm still willing, but even back then, I was still aware that it's like, hey, at most, like 6, maybe 7 people at the most. 7 people is often even a bit too much. 6, I would say, is still within parameters where you can still get a great party going with 6 people. and it not be too much. But even that, depending on the GM, can also sometimes be a bit much. But like freaking 20, like again, like the first ever like long form campaign I was a part of had like 9 players, and that was already. And to be fair, not all of them really showed up consistently. But even then, like that was still crazy. I can't even imagine, especially if this is like online. Like you just have how could you even hear anything from anybody about what they're trying to do in a situation? Like
Yeah, it's kind of
this
crazy.
boggles my mind, and it's just gonna get crazier. Sorry, continue, Sam.
The undead castle baron tried to lead the party inside, but one of the players, a wizard, decided to kill him for no reason.
Of course, of course.
I kind of froze because, again, first session, but I have him fight back, and the other players join the wizard and easily kill the undead. Okay.
I don't know why would you just let them do that?
Yeah,
Well,
just say no.
he's a new GM. He's a new GM, and
Yeah.
he's evidently he's just wanting to be accommodating to too many people. Okay.
It's kind of ridiculous to me.
But of course, with 20 players, the odds are you're probably going to get a couple murder hobos in the mix, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just how it goes. But
Goodness,
they
I feel
continue.
bad for this guy, but
I
also
do too.
I'm a little frustrated with them because it's like
Well,
I just
they set themselves up for
I mean, that's
this,
what I'm
to be
saying, but
fair.
even that's what I mean. Like I'm a little I'm kind of conflicted because I'm frustrated at them because like even as a new GM, it's like you did you like mm, you have people need to stop being so terrified of simple confrontation that they end up putting themselves into arguably far worse situations and experiences where it's just like you could have just said no. Like nobody in their right mind would believe that they could literally effectively manage 20 players. Like a new GM is already worried about managing maybe 3 to 5, maybe 6 players, let alone 20. Like it's like,
Yeah, I mean,
bro,
the way I see it, you have anything you look at online is going to tell you don't do this.
like that's what I mean.
Um,
I just don't even understand how he like.
yeah,
But then it also sucks because yeah, he's a new GM and he clearly put a lot of time and effort into his world
but
and
he's
into
very
this
excited.
thing, and obviously now it's just gonna all go to utter freaking shit. Like,
But yeah, so they easily kill the undead. The wizard and 2 of his friends charged into the castle and said, "Let's destroy this house of evil," and stormed in, killing everything in their path, from friendly creatures that were supposed to guide them and introduce the lore and story to actual enemies, as the rest of the party just kind of followed along and easily murked anything in their path. Madness of the crowds, I guess. They ended up getting lost, so I had a ghost appear and quickly make his case as to how they will not be able to escape without help, and flew off telling the party to follow him. So some of the party members finally spoke up and tried to tell the murder hobos off and demanded to go follow the ghost instead of stumbling around the castle, getting even more lost and murdering anything they came across. Wizard
God.
then just cast Fireball and the players speaking up, and then I had to scramble to try and run a 20-player PvP as different players chose sides. So no, what you should have said is no. But again, that's fine. It was a mess. It was a mess before this.
Yeah.
It was a mess as everyone had to roll initiative. I tried to have more ghosts come in and try to advocate they stop the battle, only for them to get attacked. And after a while, some switched mid-battle for some reason to join the murder hobos, and some players just ended up coming up with an excuse and leaving the table as this battle was long, chaotic, and led to the death of like 13 players, with only 2 of the murder hobos and 3 non-murder hobos who were just gonna follow along. So I basically just kind of gave up on trying to reason with them and sent waves of enemies at them as if it was a dungeon crawl. So I wasn't able to get to introduce any of the story or lore I wanted, and I had to somewhat alter the layout to get the party back on course, but I rolled with it as a couple of the dead players rolled up new characters and the rest left. Unfortunately, the end was my fault, as me being a new DM didn't quite, or I didn't have quite uh, a good idea on how to balance encounters. So I introduced a single Nightwalker amongst a low-level party or low mid-level party. I didn't understand CR in the slightest, and the Nightwalker ended up obliterating the party even after I realized mistake halfway through and tried to go easy on the party by not allowing myself to use certain moves. So this session ended in a TPK, and the castle became a haven for evil shadow creatures. I apologized, and my friends understood, but the wizard player just said I was a shitty DM and I should watch Critical Role to get better. TLDR, me, an experienced and non-confrontational DM, tries to run a 20-person campaign and a couple of murder hobos derail it until I accidentally TPK the party. The irony of the wizard who started this fucking clusterfuck telling you you're a shitty DM is wild.
I mean, the
I
fact
mean,
and the Critical Role comment at the end is just the icing cherry on top of this cake, bro.
yeah,
That's
like
freaking great, dude. Oh my god.
what I love personally is like the people being like, first time DM in 20 players. My guy, 10 players is a lot. My
Literally.
guy, 5 players is a lot.
You just
Here's my issue is that okay, I'm gonna be nice as I can. Yes, you fucked up, but you didn't
he
know any
did.
better.
He
You've
did.
learned.
I
You've now
mean,
learned from this, so it's okay. Here's the reality: things like CR, not having a shit ton of players at your table, having more than one plan if things don't go the way you want. Those are all things that are very important, and they are talked about in the DMG.
yep.
So I'm gonna be again. I'm trying to be nice. Your minimum requirement of prep was to just read part of the DMG, and you didn't do that, and now you're here. Now you've learned through fire and hell that this is not going to work. Um, albeit it sounds like you weren't a dick.
That's
So
what I mean.
I'm gonna
He
give you super props on that. You were not an asshole to these people who
he seems like a
some
nice
of them
guy.
like
He
the fireball wizard. The moment someone does that, I'm like, I don't need you here. Get out.
I
Like
mean, here's what I also feel about this. Yeah, like the moment he just starts to randomly murder Hope. Okay, I would also, quite frankly, I would be very interested to know. Like he says that they said that they've been a player for years.
yeah.
So if
How do you
you're
not know what CR is?
if you're a player for years, I mean, he might know what CR is, but he never necessarily had to look into it like that. I
I guess.
and not just that. To be fair, CR is kind of bullshit anyway. Like it doesn't really translate well to begin with. So like going by CR, in my opinion, is never really a good idea either. I think it should always just be like, hey,
Well, yeah, no,
you
you don't.
should
You don't go by it strictly. You use it as a
no,
baseline, and you kind
exactly.
of
You
alter it
use
as
it
you
as
see
a
fit.
basis. It's a way of being able to ascertain, okay, this monster or individual or being is usually like faced by characters maybe in this level range or whatever. But you do always have to be, again, clear about your party's abilities and capacity. Like sometimes it is true that, like, you know what, the roll of the dice just screws you over exponentially. And even if your party, by all standards of measurement, should have been able to maybe even steamroll or even just simply, survive this encounter, and they didn't, that happens. But it's also a thing where the GM has to deliberately take into account your player's abilities. Now, in this particular situation, which is very unique, it's interesting. I will absolutely give him much more leeway because you literally let 20 people come into your game. So no, there's no way you would have been able to
How the
necessarily know.
how the
Like,
fuck? Like, no offense, if you
I
sit at a
don't.
table, why the fuck would you walk into a table with
Well,
19
here's what I'm
players?
saying. Like, I love that. There's another comment. Literally, that was like it's like 20 LOL 20 players. Were they all completely new? Like, why would anyone want to join a game that has already so many players? I mean, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, why even would other players want to join a game with that many players? Like, let alone the GM allowing it, but why would the players even want to do that? Like,
Like
it's just like,
one of my favorite things is like the one of the comments. I'm sorry, I don't want to laugh when you had a bad time, but this is the best thing I've ever heard of.
yeah,
Just visualizing the huge crowd of insane adventurers kicking down the door of a haunted castle and plowing through the hallways, mowing everything
mowing
down while they argue and
everything.
fight with each other. Like the okay, so like because okay, imagine just the damage you could do with 20 people at a table.
And obviously, apparently, a number of them being wizards who are casting fireballs constantly. Like, people have already done that in Baldur's Gate 3, where you just have like a full team of like evocation wizards just like you will just steamroll through just about anything. Yeah, it's like, but that again, it's like I again, like, yeah, like, we're trying to be nice, we're trying to be understanding here. It's like, yeah, you might be a new GM, but I also feel I'm less open to really being nice because you were a player for years. Even as a player, you should have if you've been playing for years, you should at least have a pretty decent idea of just, you know, party cohesion, synergy. Like, are you telling me you've never, like, how does all of a sudden you being a GM change you from wanting to, like, make sure a game runs smoothly and well? Like, this is the issue, right? Even if you're a player in a game, right, you should still be doing your best to maybe help the GM to run things as smoothly and easy as possible, right? In whatever way you can. Whether it's helping another player, figure out what they can do or their character can do. Now, obviously, certain tables will restrict or allow this more than others, depending on what their viewpoint on is, like so-called meta knowledge, or because like they're like, well, we don't tell them what to do because you wouldn't know what they could do. It's like, well, maybe, but also if they're struggling, if you help them, that also just makes the combat run faster and smoother, rather than just sitting there waiting for them to try and figure it out if they really have no idea what's happening or going on. Like, this, again, the overall goal should always be about making the game smoother and more fun for everybody, including the GM. And so, like, if you're going to start GMing, then it's like, well, if you've played for years, you should have some baseline knowledge and understanding of how having 20 people in a game is going to go. How would you feel if you were a player in a game of 20 people? Like, I don't understand. I just don't. I don't. Like, it would have been one thing if he was like a completely brand new, like, player GM, like he had never played this game before at any point, and he just, was like, I want to do this, and like a lot of people just invited themselves, or his friends invited like too many extra people, and he was just like, okay, sure, and like did his best. But he clearly has, apparently, a decent amount of experience. If he's played for plural years, it's like you should have a pretty decent experience and idea of how sessions or games should go. And this was not it, my man. Like I said, it's clear that I can absolutely appreciate and commend you for being like, hey, you were very passionate. You wanted to be able to, like, tell this really interesting story with this world that you had created, and that's great. So then I also just don't further understand why you would not only allow 20 people, but then why you would then allow murder hobos to continue in this game that you wanted to tell this story about. Like,
I don't.
I just don't get it. I don't get it. I feel like a lot of this conflicts with with tons of other stuff like that they are saying. But what else do you think about this one, Sammy? Like,
I mean, like, the reality is, especially in a table this big, you have every reason. Like, if someone tries to pull shit like that, you just a big boulder falls and kills him, and just be like, cool. Now I have 19 players. Like, I understand that, like, it was tough. You're a quote unquote non-confrontational DM. Albeit that doesn't work. That's not a realistic way to live life, and it certainly isn't a realistic way to play a social game.
I mean,
Um,
to be the one, like, quote unquote, kind of in charge of the social game. Like, that's
yeah, I mean, like, you if you don't want to be confrontational, don't be a DM. Because it's an unavoidable part of playing the game. You're
literally.
gonna have to put your foot down at some point. You get to choose the type of confrontation you want to have. It can be positive confrontation, it can be negative confrontation, it could just be curt or stern. Telling someone no isn't necessarily I'm gonna be a dick now. It's just,
No,
hey, no.
I'm sorry, that's not going to work here. Or even better, okay, well, I don't know if it can work exactly like that, but maybe let's, work on a way that it can work. Let's work together to figure out how we can actually, make this viable, fair, or realistic, for the game. You know what I mean? Like, there are ways, like Sam was just saying, to be confrontational, or at least to not even confrontational, but there are even ways to address a issue or potential issue positively and
Yeah.
constructively.
And like,
Like,
obviously this person has a lot of things to work on, which is fine. But, like, by far they are not the worst person
no,
in
no,
here
it
at
absolutely
all,
is
and,
the
like, I feel
is the
terrible for
wizard.
them.
It absolutely is the wizard character who seemingly started all of this, and then literally at the end was like, "You're a shitty GM for running a goddamn game with 20 freaking players." Right, right. And on top of that, he wants to say, like, you should learn from Critical Role. Yeah, you know what? He should learn from Critical Role, because Critical Role, not even Matt, would DM for like 20 freaking random people that they don't know. when they were running a game for some others. Like, because I mean, another thing too being is like, if you already had people who signed up for this, you are now screwing those players over who signed up for this initially by letting all the rest of these players come in here. They
That's
didn't
the other
sign up
thing.
for
Well,
that. Like,
when we say sign up, like it's not necessarily the worst thing, like in my opinion.
I mean, it's just like, bro,
But
like,
I don't know. It's a little strange to me.
it just seems, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you can tell, audience, there's a bit of a reoccurring theme, at least for me personally. I am just not a fan of people just being so weak-willed about something that they feel so passionate about, they put so much time into. Like, why would you willingly allow people to just destroy this work that you have worked on? Like, this is kind of your baby, right? This is your baby in a way. This is like, I don't necessarily always like to use that phrase or that term, but it's like, this is, like, you put a lot of time and effort, and then you're just gonna sit back and let them just shit all over it because
Just completely destroy
be,
any chance of playing a normal game.
like
For what?
and
Like
that could be a fun game, yeah, because you're scared of them, what, yelling at you a bit, or scared? What are you scared of? What are you scared is gonna happen? That they'll dislike you or the game? Who gives a shit? Fuck them. They suck anyway. You should be proud and happy that they dislike you because you are standing up to their bullshit. You should be proud of that. You should be proud of them labeling you like that, because that shows that whatever the opposite of them, that's the good thing. You are now the good thing. Like, come on, man. Like, that's what, like, pick and choose who you actually, whose opinions you give a shit about. Who cares about that dude, man? He doesn't deserve to be in your game anyway. Like, but yeah, like we said, still a bit of some rage-inducing things. But that little one at the end, though, where the wizard's just like, yeah, you're a shitty GM and you should watch Critical Role to get better. That shit threw me, man. That's just hilarious, bro. Just honestly, like, that in and of itself, I'm wondering, like, how true is this story? Like, again, for all we know, this story could be fake, right? Because that's obviously that's the risk you run when you're on Reddit, of course. Plenty of people just love to post stories just to post them. And this whole thing does seem a little crazy and ridiculous in a multitude of ways. But even if it is fake, it's still highly entertaining for certain, just due to all of the shenanigans and the craziness of it. But with that, you know what? Let's go ahead and move on to our third story of the day. I think you guys will like this one. This one's a bit of an extra long one, but I love the way that the OP has formatted and set this all up for us. Honestly, it's very engaging. Title of this story is called Albert, the Cowardly Narcissist by Brain Fried. Now, many problem gamers wear their red flags for all to see, allowing you to decide if you can handle those particular flags or not. Other problem gamers, however, like Albert, reveal their red flags slowly and casually over time. Like the proverbial boiling of a frog. By the time you realize they are the problem in your game, well, by then it's far too late, my friends. The time is mid-2019. Gerard joins the group and is the ideal gamer. He wants to enjoy the game, comes prepared, doesn't hog the spotlight, but is ready for it when it's on him. And after a few months, when Gerard asked to invite a person who was just recently hired on at his place of employment, we all said sure. Now, this individual was known as Albert. And Albert knew 5th edition and was a positive addition to the game. Or so we thought. His PC did not start off as broken, but ended up becoming rather broken in time. Around double-digit levels, his Eldritch Knight was becoming a bit unhittable. I, the GM, would need to roll at minimum 18s just to score a single hit thanks to his high AC. And this was made even worse when he got either a Cloak of Displacement or would cast the spell Blur. Okay, so when it comes to saving throws, he was nearly immune thanks to feats, right? Decent dex stat and, well, certain class features, and that's okay. I'm not a new DM, and I know how to challenge the group fairly. So I designed a particular combat just to challenge him that threw a lot of lightning bolts at him. And he being the group's tank, it seemed just likely and understandable that he would, tank. Now, some constructs that would start with a standard lightning bolt aimed at its target, and when it was reduced to about 50% HP, the lightning bolt would recharge and be set off again. Albert's PC took quite a beating in that particular session. However, the party still won, and Albert had sufficient healing to keep him alive without any real issue of death. But he still continued to moan and whine about it incessantly. And I was a little irritated at that, to be honest, because this PC was never truly in any real danger, because he could easily make the saves and had access to a myriad of healing abilities and items. So that is when I started remembering the various other little things he had been doing all this time and started noting more things that would constantly pop up. He would find ways to be the center of attention as much as possible. And before we switched to a VTT, he would carry on non-game conversations at the table during other players' turns. After we switched to a VTT, I had to ask him to stop drawing random graffiti on the maps on the screen constantly. When his PC would drop to 0 HP, he would hound the healers to get him back up. All of his magic item attunements on every character of his were solely aimed at making him unhittable. And when I debated, not decided, but simply debated, nerfing certain spells that I felt that he exploited, he whined at me again. I placed an enemy or creature known as an inevitable as a guard to an extra planar prison. And when he found out the hard way that they auto hit for 60 damage, no matter your AC, he whined for several weeks afterwards. He would always choose PCs and classes that could get the highest armor class possible. Nothing else mattered more than high AC for him. And he actually thought that the game should get easier for you as you leveled up and got more powerful, and gave me grief because I would use higher CR monsters as they began to rise and level themselves. So these are all the less minor things. Now, those are all the minor things that were kind of like nitpicky here or there that were annoying. They weren't game breaking or deal breaking, but just, again, got under my skin. Now, below, here are the less minor things that shows just what a pathetic, cowardly narcissist he truly was. Now, we spoke of Gerard before, right? Gerard, great player, great guy, awesome guy. Ended up getting laid off of work at the same time we switched to the VTT. Well, it turns out that Albert set up a situation to make Gerard look bad, and so that Albert could look good in comparison to potentially get promoted. So when layoff season came, Gerard had some ticks against him that made the choice easy for their higher-ups in the company to terminate him. Now, this particular part of the story makes several of us laugh, all except for Albert, because of this reason down below. Spoilers for Curse of Strahd as a heads up. So, in Curse of Strahd, there is a cart that says something like, do not open. Another player's PC, a stereotypical half-orc barbarian, said, I ain't gonna let no sign tell me what to do, and proceeds to open the cart. The cart was full of alchemist's fire and explodes for a heinous amount of damage. The party was low level enough that a failed saving throw could insta-kill all of them. And, well, that did happen. Two PCs specifically. 2 PCs died, one of those PCs being Albert's PC.
Yay.
The half-orc, however, did in fact make his save, and they survived. Now, I knew that Albert would whine, so I took a pic of the trap and posted it in the group chat so that there couldn't be any misinterpretations or claims of cheating or finagling or whatever. Well, rather than him being an adult, this was Curse of Strahd after all, and was not going to be easy, and just simply making a new PC, he read every single word of that trap and caught one bit that I missed. The person opening the door gets disadvantage to their deck save. So rather than letting it go, he decided to be a petty rat bitch and pointed out what I missed. The half-orc rolled again, but funny enough, he still made the save. The rest of us absolutely love that story because there's some poetic justice in it. Now, this next story was based around an idea that's been around the internet for a while now, that I modified, admittedly, to my needs for the story. A wizard established a town where its initial townsfolk were constructs that he made, and they were regular people in all respects until the wizard died. The wizard just wanted a family, so the town became his extended family as he watched it grow larger with every year, and he was happy. So when he died, half a dozen townsfolk abruptly turned into iron golems. They were motionless and would remain so until the town was under attack. Then they would spring into action to save the town. The party was in this town when it happened, and they were curious, but they had some world-saving stuff to do on some other islands nearby. You know, getting a MacGuffin or whatever. There also just so happened to be an evil red dragon that was in the area that had wanted the town as its lair, but the old wizard kept him at bay for decades. Now, the party investigated an island that had some sad cyclops on it that had been reduced to the Stone Age. They had a nice little society and were able to smith weapons and other tools and stuff, but then the oxidation beasts, rust monsters for those of you who might not be in the know, came and didn't kill the Cyclops, but destroyed everything of theirs made of any kind of metallic substance. Now, the party was willing to help, though they were concerned about the risk of some of their nicer items. All right, just as a note, when I use rust monsters, I always give extra treasure to make up for anything that would be lost. Albert, however, decided that he was going to just cowardly run his bitch-ass butt back to the boat, stay offshore for the remainder of the session. He couldn't risk all of his precious, recently bought magical armor and weapons, which he'd also be able to buy again later, being lost to the rust monsters. He refused to the point the rest of the party ended up abandoning the Cyclopses to their plight, and I, as the GM, had to toss that session's planned encounters completely out the window. Now, I was content to have them go on with the adventure and just leave Albert sitting in the boat. But the party decided that they wanted to stick together, and I accepted that. I wasn't irritated at the party, but I was extremely unhappy with the cowardice of Albert and his supposed hero. A double-digit level paladin afraid of some 0.5 CR monsters that the party could easily kill from a distance. At that time, I legitimately just debated booting Albert. I debated having his deity abandon his PC for cowardice. Now, again, like, yeah, that is kind of ridiculous and dumb, especially if he's apparently a paladin. Like, it's kind of a thing. Continuing on. Then I had a stroke of evil DM genius. I had not even thought about the rust monsters versus the iron golems when I started the planning. But then I saw a painful opportunity. While the party was successfully getting the MacGuffin, the Red Dragon would make a deal with the Cyclops and put the rust monsters to use. The dragon made an appearance to the town and activated the iron golems, who instantly sprang into action, running into a herd of rust monsters that the Red Dragon released from bamboo cages on the beach. When the golems were gone, the Red Dragon, the Cyclops, and other assorted baddies destroyed the town, pillaging and plundering all. Yeesh. Now, when the party headed back to said town, the black smoke that they saw in the distance warned them of something bad had happened, and they figured out what went down. They felt horrible, and they wanted revenge. Everyone, of course, except for Albert. Sucks to be them. I'm fine, the shit said. And the final straw finally broke before I finally booted Albert from the group. The same party, about a month later, needed one last MacGuffin for their world-saving quest, and only one NPC knew where it was. A semi-sane lich who enjoyed taunting the party in evil Joker-esque ways. This time, he had made a carnival, and all the party had to do to get the clue for the last MacGuffin was to win every game of skill in the carnival in 1 hour. And I spent hours, literal out of game, real life hours on preparing the various games of skill the party would have to win. Looking at character sheets to ensure the right DCs were set to the right amount of challenge within the time limit. And I was looking forward to this because it wasn't just a simple, kill the monsters and take all its treasure kind of session. It was supposed to be a little bit silly and whimsical and different, a nice, refreshing take. Now, the party was cautiously concerned, but played along up until the point where the Lich required them to put all their magic items in a box so they could not be used during the games. Most of the party was all absolutely not, the loudest being Albert. And they were right. It could have been a trick to steal their stuff. I understood that. However, a couple of the party were fine with it because it was different. But even with that, I still felt kind of deflated. But still, I pushed forward and ensured that the party that was there, or ensured the party that there was no trick to steal their items. And Albert, however, still refused because his PC must wear his armor at all times, or some shit like that. He tried to hide behind a flimsy role-playing excuse of, it's the way my order is, which is hilarious because it's literally just like another way of saying, it's what my character would do. I love it. It's just a retextured, it's what my character would do. And at that point, I had hit my breaking point. I nearly ended the campaign right then and there. I had to point out the work I had done for the session, and they were taking a giant shit on it because of a coward and his stupid armor. The carnival still went forward, but the fun just felt completely robbed from me. A few days later, I booted Albert from the group, took a 2-month break from DMing while we played some other games. Now the newest campaign started at level 1, and the PCs just hit level 17, end post. So, I mean, for sure, this Albert dude, he sounds very aggravating, for sure. He's clearly, a very specific type of player. He's clearly a power gamer, like a legitimate one in terms of like, he likes to have high AC and defense. And I can absolutely find it to be exceedingly aggravating when if every time he gets hit or takes any kind of damage, he starts to whine, complain, and moan about it. Like that's shitty. That's annoying. Like if you're gonna be a power gamer, then you do still have to be, aware that hey, you're still probably gonna take some damage.
That's the part I don't understand.
You made the save, like you did do that, so you're not going to take as much damage, but you're still going to take damage. And if you're going to play a power gamer, then you also have to be aware that your GM might make certain things designed to specifically
to fight you
or counter you or challenge you. And it's like that's part that, again, at least should be part of the fun of it, of being like, hey, yeah, I have this ability, this power. I'm really strong in this particular way.
Like I'm powerful, but I'm not infallible.
Yeah, because you never are. That's the whole point of this game. You will never truly be completely 100% invulnerable unless like you get some really busted, crazy whatever, right? You can still get hurt. You can still go down. Now, obviously, I also am of a fan of like, I like more narrative story-driven campaigns. And so that often means that I usually prefer for PCs to remain alive, and to give them opportunities to revive. But at the same token, it's like, they can still die if they make dumb decisions. But if you didn't make a dumb decision, then it's like, well, or bad dice rolls too, technically speaking. But it's like, this guy is absolutely super cowardly. I absolutely do hate him, like literally refusing a quest hook simply because he's afraid of some rust monsters, as well as the fact, if he has magic items and weapons, like the rust monsters won't immediately destroy those things. And they can, in fact, be repaired. Like, you can take them out from a distance, as the GM himself states, but even up close, you hit them enough, they'll die before they have a chance of completely destroying your weapons or armor. Like you have a high AC for a reason too, and you just have to play smart. That's it. Like that would be again fun and interesting. I feel like there is a marked difference between true power gamers and just a bunch of punk ass wuss puss, douchebags.
I'm gonna be honest. If he didn't whine and complain about everything, then what he's doing is completely fine. No
I mean, that's what I
offense.
mean. Like
Like
it's
I don't
it's
think the DM also understands that you can't force people to do stuff. If half of your party is like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that, like that's not necessarily great DMing. Um
I was gonna say
Also, like,
the lich
well,
part, like wanting to take all of their magic. And
why
you
give them to him then?
you well, not just that, but it's like you even literally said that this lich historically liked to kind of mess with them and torment them in Joker-esque ways. Why the F would they ever want to trust this crazy lich with all of their like
Also, like,
what?
not to be that guy. Um, you know, magic weapons and stuff don't degrade from rust monsters.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like
So like,
if you have magic, they technically don't, but
they don't. It's non-magical,
if
ferrous metal. So not even all metal is degraded either because it has to have iron in it. So like,
so, but
tungsten's not ferrous. Like silver.
bronze, here's the thing. Like, even with that though, again, I can understand that, right? You still want to try again if they're higher level, and you do have people who are like, like I get it. You want to throw some monsters or abilities at them that aren't necessarily just like dangerous or deadly, but has a more side effect, right? Has another risk to it. And so I personally, I would be open to them being like, yeah, they can affect, like these are some like specific breed of rust monster that can corrode magical weapons or whatever, or items and stuff.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
But
okay,
also,
I could accept that.
I would argue if you're gonna put those in front of me, you have to give me a way to then repair my magic stuff.
No, that's what I mean. And there are ways.
Which,
Like I would say,
like,
and he does try to also stipulate. He's like, I also say when there are rust monsters, I do take specific deliberate pains to give them extra treasure for any things that might be lost. We're just like, okay.
cool.
I would submit though that unless you're willing to literally like replace the thing that was lost with the exact
There's no
same
point in
thing.
using rust monsters
Like,
at that point.
yeah, well, I mean, there is in terms of like, it is a more interesting encounter where you have to be a little bit more aware or strategic. Like, it is different. It is. It creates a different kind of fear or worry. But I would also say that it's like, well, if people like the items that they have because they like that build, like you destroying that stuff or whatever,
they're not gonna want to fight that fight, and like you can't force them to, and it's not good storytelling to just plop them in a town. What do rust monsters normally do? Have them do what they're normally doing. Why are they just here? Like, that's not a fun way to use a monster like that. I hate when people do that. They take a monster and they just like, it's here now, and it's like, why? Like, an Otyugh is a great example. Otyughs, you can find them in a number of places.
yeah.
And every time I fought an Otyugh in D&D, the DM has put it in the right spot, and it is usually a difficult
totally sense.
encounter. They have killed me before, but the reality is the Otyugh is always where the Otyugh is supposed to be, and they do not fight you for no reason. They're not just mindless creatures.
No.
And so, but there's context to why they're doing what they're doing, and you have to use that to tell a story in a nice way. There's a reason for the encounter, there's flow to the encounter. Plopping a bunch of rust monsters in a town is not a well thought out or written encounter, in my opinion. Now, as someone who likes to build effective characters, AC is not usually the one I go for. I'm definitely more of a numbers in the damage side of things.
Fair enough. I like defense. I usually like to make the defensive kind of stuff too, obviously. Although I think that's usually, yeah. I usually do like to have high AC myself. Like I like that aspect too. Just being like really quick and nimble and hard to hit. But the thing being is, even with high AC, you will always have like the weakness of not necessarily having super high saving throws unless you take a specific, build and stuff. And even with high saving throws, you're still going to take damage. It's like, because you also will probably have to limit maybe the amount of con that you have in that build if you want to get a higher AC. Unless obviously you're wearing heavy armor and with a shield. But it's like something is usually going to, like, most people, unless you roll like really amazing stats, like crazy stats, certain things are gonna fall off in comparison to others, because you're literally like having to spec or stat into one more specific thing than another. Like, you can't, a lot of the time you're not going to be able to do everything incredibly and amazingly like that, again, unless you roll just bonkers stat reliance. Like, it's not impossible,
Yeah, but like,
but most of the time it's like you're going to be a little less viable in certain ways, and that's the point. That's okay. You're not supposed to necessarily be completely and utterly infallible and invincible and untouchable. You're not a god. Even God, hell, even if you were a god, plenty of gods still are very vulnerable and touchable to many creatures and beings. So it's like, I've never understood people whining and moaning about being like, well, how did I get hit? Like, again, unless the GM truly is pulling over some bullshit on you,
and
like,
that is very much possible in this story. If I'm reading it,
I'm not. Well, again, he literally freaking put an inevitable. Like, he put an inevitable. Like, I don't even know how you would like. Because again, he said he placed an inevitable as a guard to an extraplanar prison. Now, again, I don't know if we talked about inevitables before. I feel like maybe we have. If not, maybe we should do like a video on like some of the most. Because I know we did a video like on some of the scariest like D&D monsters. I don't know if we've ever done one yet on like some of the most. I think maybe we have. I think we have done a D&D. I think we have done a video on like some of our favorite D&D monsters or most powerful one, or maybe I'll have to go back and check. Because if not, maybe we'll do one, and if we already have, maybe we'll do another one. Because inevitables, they are some of, if like, quite frankly, they are probably, in my opinion, the most scary freaking monster in the monster manual, because like the OP says here, their abilities, they just work. Like, literally, like their namesake, inevitable. Them hurting and hitting you is inevitable. They don't have to roll. They just attack you and they will deal 60 points of damage. They don't have to roll. They will just, and they have other abilities that allow them to like teleport you to like another plane of existence. They can snatch you up and just teleport you. Like, they are terrifying creatures.
Yeah, but like, no offense, you shouldn't fight these, and there's no reason for them to just fight you.
Unless you do something bad. Like, unless, like, the only time inevitables will usually ever fight anyone is if they have broken some like cosmic contract.
Yeah, or you're like an agent of chaos. But these are large.
No, they are neutral. They are lawful neutral.
Order based.
They are literally beings. They will never. I think they're from Mechanus, I believe, right?
It's the Hall of Concordance. Sigil Prime. It's from Primus.
Sigil. They're from Sigil. Right. They're from Sigil. Yeah. And they only listen to Primus. They only listen to Primus in Sigil. And they are, again, deliberate. Like, they are literally almost the ultimate upholders of law. If you make some kind of cosmic contract with, like, a devil or a god or whatever, and you break that and you like run away, this is kind of what will happen. This is what will be sent after you a lot of the time. But other than that, there's not really a reason to fight them. And to be fair, here's the thing. I could see this guy, Albert, picking a fight with one of them, not knowing what they are and thinking that he could get away with it. I will say, though, like, if he picks a fight with one and they start to fight, like, the inevitable isn't going to keep fighting them until they're dead. Like, if they stop trying to do the thing that the inevitable is trying to keep them from doing, the inevitable will stop. He has no reason to anymore. Like, he has no reason to fight them. So if it's like, oh, he's saying that they were guarding an extraplanar prison. Okay, what happened to incite the combat? Did he just straight attack him? Were they supposed to break into the prison for some reason? Because if that's the case, you are literally setting them up to have to fight this thing. Like, which again is kind of, I don't know, like, depending on what level they are, like, because even level 20s against this thing, depending, like, they're still going to have a field day trying to fight this guy, even at level 20. Like,
I mean, they're definitely killable.
They are, but it's going to be exceedingly difficult to do that before they maybe kill one of you or multiple of you before that end. Like, because again, 60 auto 60 points of damage is no small feat. Like, even for level 20 barbarian, if you're just going to take not even just 60, because it gets 2 attacks per hit. So it's 100. It would
still be, but
it's 120 damage
half if you chose the correct barbarian.
I mean, true. But even then, that's still 60 points every
mean,
turn
it
that he's
has
just like,
it has
and
an
he could
AC.
just plane shift you then too at
Yeah,
that
it
point.
has an AC of 22, 432 hit points.
Like they're not invincible, but
No, but like if
it's
any more than one of these and you're kind of
that's what
boned.
I'm saying. It's like if you fight, if there's more than one, like just the issue being is that they just have guaranteed damage against you.
And if they hit you with the edict,
Yeah, I
you're
know. It's
stunned.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. They can shut you down. Like they
Stunned and
can
auto crit if they hit
auto
you.
crits. Yes, they will just shut you
Oh,
down. Like that's what I'm saying. It's not even like these things are
come on.
terrifying for a
7.
party of any even level 20 characters that would be hard pressed to be able to just easily or safely deal with one of these things without maybe 1, 2, 3 of them going down, if not just outright dying from the encounter potential. Like it, so putting one of those there, it like they are really cool. Don't get me wrong. I love inevitables. They're super awesome. They're interesting, and I would love to be able to like fight one or even run an encounter with one. But like that also is what makes me kind of question some of the decisions of this GM here of the OP, where it's just like
Yeah.
he also just seemed to take personal like annoyance or aggravation at the fact that he couldn't hit
Yeah,
Albert.
this definitely it may have started with just one of them being the problem, but it definitely didn't end that way.
Yeah, like because again, like again, like I said, don't get me wrong, I get it because yeah, all of that stuff you highlighted that can get really annoying. It can get very frustrating, along with the fact that you can't hit him and he like But I mean, again, the fact that you can't hit him with attacks, I don't think is a big deal. Like it's like
No.
that's part of his build. That's part of his build. That's what he's good at. That's okay.
I think
Like
the bitching and complaining is annoying. But
yeah, that
I don't know when that actually started. Did that start once you decided that you're gonna now build encounters just to kill him? Because no offense, that shit is annoying. And when you focus on one person at your table, they have a
at
right to
least
be
too
annoyed.
much. Like
But
you
like
can every
there's
now and then,
there's designing an encounter to challenge your players and there's targeting.
Yeah.
And one of those things is awesome and we love it. And the other one I'm not such a big fan of.
Yeah.
If
Targeting cannot be fun. Like,
there's
you
a
know.
reason for targeting. If they maybe the character is like tied to this story or tied to this encounter to
Or
where it's
they're
like, well, the
taunting.
goal, the goal is that character
Yeah,
is
is
supposed to
that
die or
character.
get hurt, whatever. But that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I can't make a call here on who is actually in the wrong. Albert sounds like an annoying asshole, but I wouldn't want to play with this
I
DM
mean,
either.
both in and out of game. Yeah, like Albert seems like an annoying asshole both in and out of game. I think I'd be okay at least initially playing with this GM. Like I'd like again, I would be cautiously. It would be a bit trepidatious
Yeah.
to be engaging in this. But you know what? We've talked a bit enough about this one, I think. Let's go ahead and move on to the next story we have today. Sammy, go ahead and take it away.
All right. I won quote in quotation marks D&D with luck spells, and now I feel bad. So my group is rather large and has been playing for about 10 months now. Most of us are experienced, but we have had a new guy join us about 6 months ago. We will call him Rookie. A nice guy, but he's not much for reading. Like I still have to remind him of what his druid can do, or he just casts Shillelagh and goes into melee.
Oh
Fuck you.
God.
Why are you
I'm
playing this?
so sorry.
Um,
I that is one pet peeve I have. Like I'm like, please, if you've been playing for a while,
well,
even
this
if
guy
you're a
hasn't been.
new play, but again, even if you're a new play, like I get
Oh
it.
no,
Everybody has
6 months ago you should know how
yeah.
you play your
That's what I'm
character.
saying. No, that's what I'm saying. He has been playing for a while. So it's like I'm kind of just of the mind. I'm like, yo, if you've been playing for a bit, and if people have constantly helped you to like know what your character can do, like you should also be doing some research yourself.
Yeah.
You should know what your own character can do. Like
I mean, I get it.
how
Like, I get it if you've only played one type of character. Like, dude, I was running one shot for guys I've been playing with for 6 years, and were playing classes they'd never played before, and they were confused by how some of it worked because they were not used to playing those classes. And
I
I
mean,
thought that was
yeah,
hilarious.
that's
I'm like, guys, we've all played these. Like, I'm sitting here like, it's a martial class. What do you mean?
yeah.
Well, I don't play those. I'm like, all right, I guess
I
I'll help
mean,
you
I don't
out. It
know.
makes me
Like
laugh.
I mean,
It makes me
I
didn't
guess that
read
is
it,
kind of a thing
but
that separates maybe you and me from people. Is like because we are. I mean, that's why we're doing this whole show in the
I
first
also
place. It's like
play everything.
yeah, it's like and not even just play everything, but I also like I research everything. Like I love to just look in it. I'd be like, ooh, I love this character. Ooh, I would like to do that. Ooh, that power, that ability looks cool. Ooh, I want to do that. Like I have played, I think, almost every class at this point, at some point, even if it's only a little bit. Like I've
I
dabbled in
th-
every
I'm
class at some
pretty
point, at
sure
least a little bit.
the only thing I haven't played
You haven't played Wizard yet.
is Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you haven't
haven't played Wizard
you
or
haven't played
Blood
Wizard yet.
Hunter.
Yeah, you haven't played Wizard yet. You haven't played
I've
Wizard or
played
Blood Hunter.
I've played everything else.
Yeah,
And
I
I'm never gonna play
think.
Wizard.
Oh, you're gonna play Wizard. You already have one, bro. We got Elias waiting in the wings for
I
you,
know we
bro.
do. And this is the one I wanted to play.
Yeah, this is
I've
gonna
literally played
happen.
yeah,
Let's see.
everything
Yeah,
except Wizard and
I've
Bloodhunter.
done
That's
Artificer,
hilarious.
Barbarian. I've played a Bard. Yeah, I've played Cleric. Yep, played Druid, played Fighter, played Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer,
Now, to be fair,
Warlock.
I haven't
I haven't played like a real war. No, no, I have played a Warlock. Never mind. I have played a
to
Warlock.
be fair, I haven't played some of these as the standalone major class. Like the only paladin I've never played like a full paladin or a super high level paladin because I usually multi-class into paladin. I've never played a
Hmm.
full. I don't think I've played a full rogue either.
Oh, I
I've played rogue multi-classes where rogue was like the main class, but yeah,
I'm
I mean,
trying to think. I think maybe the only class I haven't like really played as is Bard. Like
Bard's so good though.
I think
God, I
I
love
have
Bard.
technically had an opportunity to play at least a little bit of every class.
Yeah,
I think except for Bard because I'm trying to
yeah.
think of a time. I feel like I have. I'm trying to think of a time I have though because I know I
Uh,
have plenty of Bards as like support, but
to be fair, my sorcerer was like level 3 or 2 and died in the second session of Curse of Strahd. So,
yeah, there you go.
but it still counts. He was a melee dwarf sorcerer.
Yeah, that's why he died. That's why he
I'm bringing
died
him back. It's
like a
fine.
punk. That's why he died like a wuss.
But yeah, so yeah, I kind of get not knowing how to do everything, but this is a little bit extreme.
There's a difference.
Um,
You've been playing this one character for 6 months. Like, come on, you should know
Yeah, so
what your
guy
character
doesn't
can
read and
do.
doesn't know how to play Druid, which is a pretty straightforward class. About 2 months back, he decided
Eh.
he wanted to try running Spelljammer.
Oh God.
The rest of
Oh
us take this as
God.
a sign that he's finally going to take things seriously and learn the rules. Nope,
Why would you assume that?
nope. He basically railroads us through the game and throws magic items at us like it's Christmas. He even states us that he wants us to break the game and do anything we want. I decided I wanted to control the dice and made a divination wizard with the luck feat and silvery barbs as my favorite spell. I don't even take any big damage spells because I wanted to be a fate bending support character. I explained this to Ricky and he gives it the okay. Now, hopefully you played Halfling as well. Now, we are about
You have
six
to.
to
You
seven
have to.
sessions into the game, and the GM is starting. Well, no, actually, no. I guess you can. And the GM is starting to be more hostile. This might be because of new player to the group. They can be disruptive, but overall is a good guy. So they added someone new again. So now they're at too many people.
Probably. How many? I don't know if
Anyway,
he ever said how many people there are.
no, but still. Anyway, he has what I assume to be a boss character teleport onto our ship, give a speech, and begin a fight. She comes in solo and starts fighting. We start swinging at it, and I notice that the spell casting character somehow has an AC higher than 22 and has yet to roll anything lower than an 18, even
Hmm.
with my spells forcing rerolls. Ricky
Now see
starts
that?
Yeah, Ricky starts complaining about it being 6v1, even though we have yet to get more than half spell damage onto this character. He then says the boss we are fighting casts a summoning spell and summons a golem that is an exact duplicate of the boss. I realize that he has gone full adversarial DM.
I mean, I would even like
Um,
he's saying he's complaining 6v1. You could have literally changed that easily. You
yeah,
could have
I
literally
hate
just
that. I
brought
really hate that
you could
that's
have
an
literally just
argument.
brought minions. Like, see this, yeah, I
Also,
mean, the fact
I,
that he says that literally shows right away that this is like his DM NPC, that he wanted to show off how cool and powerful they were. And I was
yeah,
like, but it's 6v1, you
yeah.
guys. Like, this is unfair.
I will say there are some powerful stuff that like even if you roll like a 3, you still roll like an 18. Like
I
some dragon
mean,
abilities, like some
but
later level
she's a
enemies.
wizard
I know,
though.
but
Like
or
and
some
has
sort
an
of
AC
spellcaster.
high, like unless she's a blade singer wizard, having an AC higher than a 22
Well,
is gonna
technically,
get hard.
technically,
Mhm.
monsters don't have to go by the rules.
No.
So
Well,
they're a
kind of still do.
spellcaster,
Yeah,
but
a
like they don't.
spellcaster kind of
But
still does.
they can technically wear armor if it's a not a player character.
No, not
If it's not no, if
necessarily.
it's not going by class rules, yeah. That's monsters are
Well,
monsters.
as
That's
I'm saying,
why
technically
there's the
though, a wizard
separation.
is actually having classes. They are a
Oh, yeah,
whatever
no, I
level
know that.
spellcaster. So
But
don't get me wrong, you're right. He can homebrew certain things, but it's also clearly like, that it's about the balancing.
All they said was that it was a spell casting character.
Okay. All
Which
right. They didn't say
technically,
wizard. That is true. You're
no.
right.
And
It's a spell
spellcasters can,
casting character. Yeah.
yeah. But fight is looking bad for us because of the suspiciously high rolls, but I have an ace up my sleeve in the form of a nat 1 portent die and
Oh,
grease being prepared. My turn comes up
Grease is
and I announce my spell. We then spend about 5 minutes explaining the spell and arguing about how it's placed and such. Somehow, Rookie was convinced that a 10-foot box was going to hit everyone who was in melee, which included 2 of our guys and his 2 bad guys, in a formation that I would describe as the T-piece from Tetris. Anyway, after arguing size and shape, we then argue position, saying I could place it so that half of it is off the side of our spelljammer. He says, no, I can't do that. Yes, you can. I'm tired of this, so I say, fine, I place the spell so it hits his guys and one of ours. I then explain the spell and say that I use the portent to make him roll a 1 for the save. He says no, that he doesn't want to, and that I can't use my ability. I say, seriously? This is how you want to play it, dude? And he basically plays master and victim, pointing out that he is the DM and can do whatever he wants, and that it's so unfair because it's 6v1 again. I decided I have enough of him and start packing my stuff, saying if that's how he wants to run his game, I don't want to take part. He starts throwing a fit, saying how I hate him and it's not his fault, he doesn't know the rules. and how he's outnumbered, eventually tossing the books and storming out, leaving the rest of us stunned. Looks like he won't be back, which is awkward because we work at the same place.
Yeah.
I feel like I could have handled things better on my end, such as waiting until the session was over to say I wasn't going to take part in his game anymore or something. I don't think this is an am I the asshole situation, but I still feel as the more experienced gamer, I could have set a better example somehow. TLDR, new player wants to DM without reading the rules and gets mad when I try to force him to fail a save. So here's my okay. It's not my fault. I don't know the rules.
Look,
wow. Oh, this is wonderful. This is a wonderful quote that someone posted.
Good.
My lack of competence and unwillingness to learn is everyone else's fault, not mine.
Yep.
Look, fuck this dude. First and foremost, I can't deal with whiny fucking baby.
Yeah.
I can't do it. So,
like I said, we went over that a second ago.
In my opinion, one, there are so many other spells you could force him to fail that would do better than Grease, although Grease is something.
Grease is okay. It's all right.
I've never seen anyone use it
again. Yeah, I've seen people use it, and it's like a lot of the time they try to use it and they want to like use it in conjunction with like a fire spell to be like, I can make fiery terrain now, right? And the GM and a lot of the GM's like, no, that's not how the spell works. Like it, and he's not wrong. Like it's Grease, but it's not like it doesn't say that it can, be set on fire. Normal Grease is, but this is also like, magic grease. So if we're gonna say that, we could also say like, well, they could then wash the grease away with like water, right? But it doesn't say that. Like I get the feeling that it is like just it makes the ground basically like the consistency of grease, where you're like, because you don't also get like grease stuck or caught on you. You just slip and slide, Like it says slick grease covers the ground, but I don't think technically you would be able to set it on fire because it's like, again, it's magical. Like I don't think that that's technically how the spell is supposed to work. There's nothing here that really gives you the indicator of it, because normally it would also maybe say like it is flammable, like how fireball would also basically be like it ignites or inflames all flammable things or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, you could make a an argument that grease is flammable, but it's not like it just fuck it, boom. Like that's not really how grease works.
Well, that's what I'm saying too. It's like
also arguably, the material component is a bit of pork rind or butter. Neither of those things are combustible to that degree. They will stay lit, and like you could caramelize it. Like it's not like a big fire like people are. Well, it's not like automotive grease.
Well, another thing being though is like if the grease did catch on fire, like they're wanting, like it would also technically completely change kind of the whole composition of the spell. Like the spell wouldn't work like it normally does anymore. Like it wouldn't be greasy. It would just be
just be fire damage.
It'd be fiery, and so it's like that's why I feel like I don't think it would actually catch because it's magical grease.
I think it could catch fire. It's just not going to do what you think it's going to do. It's not going to just
Well, because
boom.
well,
Because
another thing too,
that's not how grease works in general.
because the grease also just it disappears when when the duration is up. Like,
Yeah. But it's not grease in the sense of like it's not like oil from your car that's going to like light
although
up and spark up like that.
you
It'll
know what? Maybe not. I take it back because it doesn't say the grease disappears after the spell is gone.
Hmm.
So
I mean, I don't think I think after the spell is gone it's just not uh an offensive capability anymore. I think it's just in the ground now. I don't know. Like you could be
I don't
creative with
know.
this.
Yeah,
To
you
be
know what? I take
completely
it back.
honest,
Maybe it is more like normal grease because it just says that the
well,
grease
no,
appears and then it
sure,
doesn't disappear.
but
So
I'm just gonna put it out here. Bacon grease is not
yeah,
going to light up
it's
like
no,
that.
it's not gonna light up like that.
It
It's not
sucks.
like a
You could, in theory,
it's
fill a bunch of
stingy.
yeah,
It's
sure.
like it's like sparky. You like
No, but
spark. You're
like
just like
if I were to hold a lighter to a jar of bacon grease, it's not gonna combust.
no,
So yeah, it's not gonna work that intended way.
no.
Albeit I get making the argument it's technically flammable, sure, but so is
But
like
even then,
pitch, so is like
well, that's what I'm saying.
a
Like
lot of other
either way,
things.
like the fact again, grease. Point being, grease is not a huge thing
No,
for him to try to like debate with
no,
them about. But I know what he was trying to do. Like he just didn't want his boss to fail, is what it was. Like he just
yeah,
didn't want his boss like because he was just like yeah, like oh my god, I'm sorry. Like I know. For me and Sam, this is a huge just uber cringe like ick thing because it's just like people, you're playing the game.
yeah. Just play the game.
Why don't you learn how to play the game? Why what do you mean it's not his
That's a
fault? What
that's
does he
wild.
mean? It's not his fault he doesn't know the rules. You're the
Yeah,
GM.
that's a
You should
wild thing for
know the
me.
rules. Like how even more so if you've been playing for 6 months or longer, you should have a pretty decent idea of the stuff your character can do. No, you do not have to remember everything because there's a lot of shit when it comes to like depending on what level you are, depending on if you are a spellcaster, because that can be a lot. It can be. It can be a lot. But you should at least know more than just casting Shillelagh and going into melee as a freaking druid. Like, if that was the case, just play a freaking melee fighter. Just play a fighter. If all you wanted to do was go in and bonk shit for the most part. Like, if you wanted to play a druid, then like, well, again, I don't understand people who don't study up on some shit.
Yeah,
If you want to do something, anything really, not even just
like
this, but if you want to do something and you're interested in it, why don't you legitimately try to learn more about it? Like that mentality just doesn't make any sense to me at all about that. It's like, and again, you don't have to be super in depth, not ton, but just even baseline. It just makes sense. We're just like, oh, I wanted to do this thing, but I don't know how. 6 months, 6 months, you still don't know. And I've been because and you know what? Maybe this is also just coming from my own personal experiences because I've literally had to deal with and interact with people like that, not just in D&D, but like in work environments and stuff too, where you're just like, you have been here for like a year and you still don't know how to do like the most basic tasks. Like, what is happening? What is, oh my God. Like it just, my mind just breaks again with shit like that, I guess. But it,
for me, it's like just do the bare minimum, but
exactly.
it
Just
doesn't look like
surface
this
level.
person has the. I don't think they have the mental ability to do that. So I
Like
don't know.
it just like same thing. Again, this guy's saying like it's 6v1. You didn't have to make it 6v1.
No,
In fact, you could at any moment be like, oh, minions show up because your wizard had an item that conjures them or some shit or whatever the hell. Like you trying to use that as like you're not a player.
no.
You are the GM. You are the overgod of this world. Now, that doesn't mean you should use and abuse your powers. Obviously, that's still a problem in and of itself. But the fact is that you literally are doing that. You're already abusing your powers. But then you want to have the absolute unmitigated gall to then try and complain about unfairness of an encounter that you made with a 6v1. Like, this dude sounds like he's freaking 3 years old. Like,
Yeah, that's the other thing. It doesn't sound like
literally,
this person's
he sounds like a
grown.
goddamn child, bro. He sounds, I wouldn't even say 3. He sounds 6. He sounds 6 years old. Because a 6-year-old, I think, still does have some concept and an understanding that I think he's doing this on purpose to a certain extent, where he's just trying to be defensive. He's trying to be like, well, I just wanted to do like, of all the things, Spelljammer. He chose Spelljammer to try and run. Like, holy crap,
Yeah,
dude. This guy.
Spelljammer's just, I don't think most people aren't gonna run Spelljammer that well
Spelljammer is hard, like, because it's
because it's completely open.
yeah,
And
it is a completely
but
open thing. You're in space, literally. The astral sea.
yeah,
You can have all kinds of weird, crazy, like strange sci-fi fantasy mix shit go
and like
on.
none of it's gonna matter.
No,
And
it's
gonna be
hard. Yeah.
non-cohesive story.
At least unless you can really, really tie shit together well. That takes some real decent level, some mastery of narrative and storytelling. But that's Spelljammer's hard. But anything else you kind of got on this one, bud?
No, I think that's all I got on this
All
one.
right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one then. This is titled Metagaming PC Makes the Game Worse for Everyone by Jeffro Boy. TLDR, player uses meta knowledge that they are incorrect about, hurts the whole party, whines, then rage quits when they don't get their way. More whiny, bitch moaning shit. Cool. I decided to run a Tomb of Annihilation campaign. This was the first full campaign I'd run online, so I was pretty inexperienced. So I recruited people from both, Tomb of Annihilation. Like, dude, don't. Why do people choose like some of just the most like painful, sloggy, like just like this? This is a literal meat grinder campaign. Like this. I recruited people from both Roll20 game advertising as well as some people I knew online. Now, Dog was a guy I had briefly played with before. He was very keen to play, as he said he'd started to play in a different Tomb of Annihilation campaign before, but it'd fallen apart. I would soon get an idea as to why. Anyway, though, he seemed cool enough when we played before and assured me his previous knowledge wouldn't be a problem, so I signed him up. Game started off well. See, there's another thing, though, too, being is like, for stuff like this, I can understand as well, like, there are some things that GMs for like modules will try to like screw with you about or like make it unfair. And so having some meta knowledge about that does at least give you the ability to recognize when a GM is trying to screw you over. That is one caveat that I will say to that, is that meta knowledge can actually be used maybe for good and productiveness, because there are some GMs who will legitimately do some or pull some bullshit that isn't even fair at all. And so you can be like, wait a minute, that's not fair. Like, anywho, game started off well. We had some really cool one-on-one sessions with the players to integrate their backgrounds into why they were joining the expedition. Port Nyanzaru is great for scene setting with the whole party, etc. We had a few minor problems with Dog, like him saying he thought the book said they should get a level up when they left town, etc. But I put that down to him remembering his old DM running it differently. Could be. Not outside the realm of possibility. Eventually, they made it to a dungeon. The party was doing well, slowly advancing, drawing enemies out, not alerting the ones deeper in, etc. Then Dog decides to just blatantly charge in, right past the current fight, into a crowd of unaggroed enemies that hadn't even been alerted yet. Those enemies all start aggroing on him, and is his response to retreat? No. He charges even further in, essentially alerting the entire dungeon. Well, his character dies, and the rest of the party is only saved from a complete and total party wipe because I had some NPCs come help. It was plausible that they would do so, but it did still feel a little like an ass pull. His response when the rest of the group questioned what the hell he was thinking: well, those enemies come and join in the fight in that room anyway, so it wouldn't make any difference. If it wasn't obvious, he just made it clear that he had not only been using meta knowledge from his previous game to determine his actions, but in fact, that he wasn't even correct about that meta knowledge.
That's my favorite part.
Literally, that literally is the kicker. That is the absolute cherry on top.
He was just
The,
wrong.
the book specifically states those enemies do not aggro unless you hang out close to them for several turns, which he did. He metagamed and used it to make things worse for everyone. And since we were using the optional lingering injuries rule, why?
Oh, yes.
Why would you do that on
Good
top of everything else?
idea. Good
As a
idea.
first time GM,
You
why on
made
top of
the
doing
right
2
choice.
of annihilation with optional lingering injuries?
Yes.
Oh, see, this is
You,
another thing.
sir, you have made the correct choice.
Shut up, Sam. Shut up. Stop it. We are not advocating for this
You
type of
know, I
behavior.
was gonna be like, "Oh, this
Absolutely
dude really
not.
doesn't know what he's doing." But then when he added the lingering injuries table,
No,
I was like,
no.
"Fuck yeah, dude, keep doing
Oh
you."
God.
In Tomb of Annihilation, it's like the best one to do
This
it in. In a
this
hex crawl
game
campaign where you
was
have to.
doomed from the start. God damn it. All
I
right.
don't know, man. I love it.
Since we're using the optional lingering rules from the DMG, some PCs, shocker, shocker, suffered long-term consequences from his actions. Oh, you don't frickin' say. Who could have possibly imagined that? Huh? Oh, what a surprise. Anyway, not wanting to be mean, I allowed his backup character to be found in the dungeon prison cells. But apparently, that wasn't fast enough for him. And while the others were coming to get him out of his own mess, he started doodling all over the Roll20 map we were trying to play on. Wow, how many people is that we've clocked doodling on the map?
Twice today?
Is it 2 or 3 times? I thought it might be 3.
At least 2 today.
Then once we got back to port, he decides to go off on his own and enter gladiatorial fights, which was already kind of a dick move, as it means the other players weren't getting to do much while I'm running his fight. I don't know why they couldn't necessarily just follow it along with him, like if they were interested or really wanted to. But to make matters worse, plus you don't have to stay just on his fight the whole time. You can literally be like,
there's that too.
hey, his turn, enemy's turn. You know, you do that for a bit, then you switch over to somebody else, like, and make him like you don't have to stay on his fight till it's over. Like,
but again, this guy doesn't have a lot of experience. So.
Oh God, yeah. But to make matters worse, Roll20 is not displaying the NPC's rolls publicly. So he starts whining every time they hit him and saying, I've got to tell him the rolls rather than just saying if they hit. Thoroughly sick of his shit at this point, I answer, no, I don't actually. Now, okay.
I don't like that.
See,
you were doing really good when you added the lingering injuries.
Oh, shut up, Sam. No, he wasn't.
But then you said you don't like saying the numbers.
All of this is problematic.
I want to hear the number
now,
as a player.
Here's
I'm not saying that you have to tell me what they rolled, but I want to hear the total number rolled on the attack every time. That's my preference. I hate when DMs just don't do it because
I agree.
It feels like you're just arbitrarily deciding if you hit me or not.
No, I agree. Like it is, to me, it is still like, yeah, you don't necessarily have to always show the roll necessarily.
I don't need you to show it to me, but I want to know. I want you to tell me.
Even that, to be fair, even that is a bit of a slippery slope, right? If you're not going to show the dice rolls themselves, that can become a bit of a problem, especially if you're requiring other people to show you their rolls, where it's like
most people roll behind a board anyway. Like that's not the problem.
I know, but point being is that it can generate to a bit of mistrust and paranoia, where it's like, hey, if I'm in a 1v1 fight with this guy and if they're gonna do like, if they're doing like really well, or if they're like whatever, it's like, and if the rule of the table is that the GM needs to see all of the players' roles and doesn't trust the players necessarily, then I would say that same rule should then apply to them as well. That they should also be showing their roles too. If that's how we're going to play it, that's how it should be played. However, on the flip side, I also do 100% understand and even sometimes advocate that's like, it is a good thing for the GM to not always have to show their roles, because that way they can fudge and cheat sometimes, but only in, I would hope, benefit to the players, right? For instance, if players are in like a bad situation like that, like that previous 20-player pile up when he was like, I put a Nightwalker in there, and you're just like, okay, well, if you could fudge the rolls and basically like, okay, he rolls, he has a plus, 9 to the attack roll, but you're just like, all right, he rolled, he rolled a 12. because, you know, he rolled a 3 or kept rolling. You know, you can fudge the rolls if your players are getting the absolute dog water smacked out of them, right? Where you can be like, okay, I can, because again, if you show your rolls, then they're just what they are. And you know what? I'm still okay with that. I like that. I kind of do prefer that because like it is truly just the dice. Though to be fair, if you're playing a VTT, there is precedence that sometimes GMs can also fudge those dice with, you know, certain programming and skills and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a thing that can happen.
Why would you do that? Why would you go out there to do that? That doesn't even make any sense.
I mean, Sammy, we have read so many of these stories. People,
I know. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it is a thing. It's a thing that can happen.
You have to like learn how to do that. Why? I'm not taking the time to do that. I'd rather like fucking sleep or eat food or something. I don't know.
Nope.
That's
people do that, and it's, you know. So again, I get it. I see both sides of the argument, and I advocate for both for different reasons. I do. I advocate for both, and I also can point out the disadvantages of both as well. And that being the case, but this person's saying like, no, I don't actually. When the player is requested, like if you're gonna roll behind the screen and not show your roll, you should at least be able to willingly be like, okay, this is what I rolled. He rolled this, he got this. Like you should never be unwilling if a player asks you to tell them, because also, again, another thing too being, you can't just say that they hit, because it's like, okay, what was the roll? Because they might have shield for a spell, or they might have some reaction that they can use. They might have, you know, they might have something they can do in response. And so you should never just basically be like, well, that hits. And or if you're gonna say that hits, it's like, you know, are you gonna do anything at all? Like, you know, tell them the roll. Because it also depends on like, okay, if the roll is higher than like, you know, 5 over their AC, obviously shield's not gonna work. So, you know, they're not gonna be able to do that. But you should still tell them what you rolled, because that allows them to do something in response. Now,
at my tables, it's always been that the GM doesn't have to tell you, like, doesn't have to show you the roll that they made on the dice. But like, if you're attacking me, they'd be like 25 to hit, or you know, to give you the number that the total number.
You hit the total number.
But like, that was all they had to tell, and I was okay with that. And I when they don't do that, it would get me annoyed, and I would tell them, I'm not doing anything until you tell me the total number.
Because that is important. I also feel like, I think the best scenario is to tell them the total number that was rolled, not what was rolled on the dice. Again, I agree. Maybe that's the best middle ground, is you don't have to show the dice roll, but you do have to call out the total number. Although you know, once again though, there is something to be said about if they are consistently rolling super freaking high numbers, then that is kind of when it can come to a place of being like, can I see your rolls, please? Like, if you're constantly getting like, you know, 25s, 26s, 27, like that means you're still consistently rolling like, you know, potentially 15, 16, 17s or 18s, whatever, like consistent.
Yeah,
so
you're
it's
not
like
rolling under a 15.
Like that's again, not impossible, but
improbable.
So we'd like to see those dice rolls maybe just a little bit, because people, it's unfortunate, but it is not an uncommon thing. But you know what? Continuing, we're going to finish this off real quick. So after I say this to him, he instantly chooses to rage quit. Oh, thank God. And that's the OP saying that, not me. I should have kicked him earlier, but I was new and it's harder in the moment. And anyway, the game was just better from then on at that point. Though, of course, it still had some problems here or there. Again, I'm new. It eventually did, though, end bittersweetly, with the PCs ending the death curse, but unfortunately all dying in the process to it.
I mean, that's Tomb of Annihilation.
End press, yeah. I mean, you know, they can. There are ways, I believe, to survive
like, that's just,
that. But
that's
Tomb of Annihilation is, again, it is a literal meat grinder. It's in the name. It is a literal meat grinder.
Like, I love that. I love that campaign.
Yeah, I know you do, because you like meat grinder shit like that. You like that shit.
I want more games with lingering injuries.
No. That is.
I'm gonna add it to my. I'm gonna add it to my
terrible
game.
It's so stupid. I swear to God, you do that, I'm sure plenty of your players are gonna leave immediately.
Let's go look at the lingering injuries.
Oh God, no. Okay. I love down here though. One of the comments underneath by dude is like, doodling on the Roll20 map seems to be the universal sign of a real prick. And it's like, kind of like, if it's one thing if it's like, oh hey, if you're just doodling random stuff, and maybe it's not like hurting the encounter or distracting a bit. You know, if it's like one thing that's like maybe a joke or something, that's not terrible. Like I don't hate that, but if you're just consistently every time it's not your turn, just writing shit, just all over the map. Like if you're doing it maybe like an isolated area where it's like, again, it's not really a big deal. It's not harming or interfering with anything. It's like there's nothing wrong with that. I'm fine with that. But if you're like writing just like in the middle of like where people are and shit happening, like that shit, ooh, that blows a fucking gasket for me sometimes. Where I'm just like, bro, what are you doing? Like you were being a straight douche right now. Like, come on, man. Like, yeah, and another comment underneath says, I have someone who does that in my group, but he just marks the paths we've taken and draws little encounters we have along the way where they happen. It's super cool and gives the map a more used and fantasy feel, especially when there's a drawing of a dragon fight over a hoard of gold and a volcano on top of a mountain range on the map. But yeah, when we first started, we were all drawing random shit on the map, and that got old pretty fast. Like, it's like, yeah, again, stuff like that, like I think it's fine.
Let's
Again,
be honest. Usually, you're drawing a penis with MS Paint.
That's what I'm saying. It's like that's that's a little bit like, okay, really, come on, man.
Is
like,
it mature? No.
I mean, arguably, it's not even really that entertaining or funny either because it's so played out. No. It's like, again, it's like, come on, stop it. But that being the case, that's the end of that overall story. Any other thoughts you have on this one, Sammy?
No, I think we got it.
Let's go ahead and then move on to the final story of the day. By all means, please take it away.
Final one is player wants everyone to suffer as revenge for his death. God damn, I hate this game sometimes. I have a close friend as a player who just
don't hate the game, hate the player. Okay, don't hate the game.
I have a close friend as a player who just does not get D&D. It's been constant issue since day one, basically around him not being able to handle any negative consequences.
See, we keep coming back to this.
Yeah. Recently, his character died. He brute forced a dodge the lasers puzzle, so he took some damage and activated the alarms leading to combat. Then he brute forced a door puzzle. There are only 68 possible combinations, so let's just try one by one, which led to 7 times 40 damage over the course of the puzzle. Left the party at 5 HP with no spell slots. Met an NPC who was obviously shitty, didn't want to hear what he had to say, kept asking him for free items, got led into an ambush, combat started. Miraculously, he was the only one who died permanently, thanks to some crazy rolls and big sacrifices from other players.
So there is a god after all. Look at that.
He was
karma
clearly,
in its purest form.
Yeah. He was clearly very upset. He asked me to dinner to discuss the D&D issue, and basically called me a coward for not killing everyone. Argued I should have given everyone inspiration or otherwise intervened to keep him alive. I have it in my Session 0 rules that the goal of D&D is to have fun, not to win the game. He says death isn't fun, so I broke the rules. He says that being the only one dying was unfair and isolating, and it would have been much better for him if they all suffered together.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. We had an in-game funeral. One of the players wrote him a song. At the dinner, he said I should have also wrote him a song. Like, how much of my time do we have to spend soothing your ego?
For real, bro.
Next session, he comes back as his character's twin brother. Yeah. Supposedly, his first character had been having secret conversations with his twin. So his twin has all the same knowledge and grudges, etc. Total bullshit. I should have shut it down there. He then spends the whole session pushing really hard for combat and doing things to start fights. In my heart, I know he just wants everyone else to die. At one point, we're in a room with 2 BBEGs, one of whom is functionally immortal right now, plus 20 minions. In the entire dialogue, he's throwing out insults or telling the other players to attack. We got through 4 rooms that night, and in every single one, the other players had to fight really hard to stop him getting them killed. It's seriously so upsetting. Gonna kick him from the group when I see him next, but Jesus Christmas. Who plays a game like this? I hate that this is going to cause even more issues out of game, but like I've been having an awful time for the last 12 weeks, so it's fair, right? Yeah, this is a short and sweet. You're doing the right thing. I don't. Maybe this person probably just shouldn't play D&D.
I
If I'm gonna be
mean,
honest, like if you're this fucking bitchy about your character
I
dying,
think,
like
quite frankly, I'm pretty sure we found another narcissist
12,
here.
12 weeks,
Like,
12 weeks, your character was alive and it died, and you have to have a funeral in game.
well, not
Jesus
just that.
Christ, dude.
Him literally saying, like, yeah, well, death isn't fun, so he broke the rules. Like, okay, look, I get it. Yeah, I get that. All right. Here's the thing. If the GM really is about, having more fun, winning isn't necessarily like about not dying either. Like, it's like, he could have maybe tried to work with the player.
I don't know, dude. Death is pretty fun to me.
It can be, but not necessarily for everybody. Because, like I said, I am more of a thing of like, if especially a character has been going for a long time, and we like this character, we're having fun with them, and we want to really try to get to their get to their the finality of their story, and they die. It's like, well, there are ways of dealing with that. Like, yeah, like again, Critical Role did it probably best in Great 2, or in the current campaign, where they went and revived Laudna, right? Like, she died from I'm forgetting her name at the moment.
Spoilers.
Uh, she died from the Legend of the Peaks. I'm forgetting her actual name for some reason right now. But they went and they revived her. Like, the rest of them got messed up and were knocked out. But they were able to revive some of them, but they weren't able to revive everybody right there. So they had to go like on another specific journey to go and revive her. And that was a cool thing.
Yeah,
And so
that
it's
is
like,
arguably the correct way to do stuff like that.
yeah. And so it's like, that's, again, I feel like GMs should be open to doing that. Again,
Yeah.
if it really is about having fun and the player is still very much connected and attached to this character, and they put a lot of, a decent amount of time and energy into them. Like, so it's like, 12 weeks. It's like, okay, well, that's not a small amount of time.
Yeah. Also, like, what's permanent death in a fantasy game with revival magic?
But that's what I'm talking about. You have
So
gods and stuff. Like, you can do it.
There is a bit of me that's like, he was glad that he died because he just wanted him to be gone. But
yeah, and so I get that too. But
my issue though is like, so what happened that you couldn't revive him, even if you like brought his corpse back to town or some shit?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. If you still had his corpse, if you literally had a funeral for him and everything, like,
it's a little weird.
You could have potentially, if it was really a thing and the player, like, I don't see why the GM couldn't have, because again, if he's like, the issue being, obviously, it's not the character, it's the player.
It's the player.
And
well,
so if you're gonna keep the player in, then it's like, well, then you might as well just give it, because again, nigga literally came back with his twin brother. Like, he did the stereotype like freaking things of like, they literally have so many just like there's this YouTube channel called Viva La Dirt League. You guys should go check them out. They're great. And they literally made like a whole series like of jokes about this, how like this dwarven wizard who just constantly dies because he's super arrogant and he's super conceited, and he just constantly like dies to everything, because wizards are also just, historically they have the lowest health of everybody. But he always comes back. Is like his first character is named like Torgrin or something, and his character dies, and then immediately he's like, "Oh, my twin brother, Torgrin, I am Borgrin. I'll come back and avenge you." And then Borgrin dies, and he's like, "Oh, Borgrin, your twin brother Gorgrin will avenge you." Like, he does that like 6 times. And it's the same shit here, where it's just like, come on, bro. Look, I get it. If you're still attached to this character and you still want to try and, like, increase their, their story, or not increase, but to still follow the story, that is something that you still have to talk to your GM about. Like, again, work with them to bring them back. And GMs don't always do it in a way that, again, it has to be like a detriment thing. I know a lot of GMs try to do that thing like, well, you can come back, but only if you make like some foul Faustian devil bargain or something with a creature or a being from the lower planes. No, you don't always have to make it that way. It doesn't always have to be like you got to make a bad deal to sell your soul or whatever. Like, you can make it something good. You can do it like with a god or a goddess being like, hey, you guys need to bring his body, or even just a piece of him, not even his full body, even just a piece of him, to this place or whatever, so that they can be revived and brought back because they still have business. They still have things they have to do here. You know, they were taken too soon, whatever. Like, you don't, there are ways of doing this right and okay, where you don't always have to make it be like, oh, like you are punishing the player for wanting to keep playing this character. You know, I don't think you should automatically just punish a character or a player for wanting to keep playing this character that they really love and they feel attached to, and they might still want to explore more with. If they're okay with rolling up a new character, that's great. In that case, I would say, do not just make another carbon copy of the character you just played. That shit is stupid and ridiculous and dumb. If you are agreeing to roll up a new character, then roll up a truly new character. Don't just freaking do the stupid twin thing. That's stupid and dumb and ridiculous. And it's more often than not used as a means of trying to screw over your party. Because it's true here. Like, for this guy, it is clear he is exceedingly narcissistic and selfish, literally going like, yeah, you see, it would have just been way better for me if we had all suffered together instead of me being the only one who died permanently. It's like, yeah, you know what? I get it. That does suck. If it's like, hey, you're the only one who died, everybody else got it. Like, yeah, that doesn't feel awesome. But at the same time, you should also feel good about the others who did get away. And that, like, again, at that point, it would be a cool thing for them to try and bring you back then, wouldn't it? Like, that also could lead into that. Like, and I also, there is something to be said for about, you know, so-called trauma bonding, right? And like group experiences, yeah. But you you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. If you're going to try and constantly brute force a puzzle that led to not only just you taking damage, but the entire party taking damage, first off, I would say that kind of sucks GM. Like, again, if you're going to, corporal punishment is just never, in my opinion, like a huge, great thing. But like, you clearly don't really care much about the party anyway. So you trying to claim like, oh, well, this would have been a good, you know, it would have been way better if we all suffered together. But you literally said it. We way better for you because you wouldn't feel like you're the only one and the odd man out. Like, on top of that, this nigga literally invited OP to like, yo, we need to have a dinner to have a talk about the D&D issue. Like, the fuck are you? Are you the fuck? What? You the fucking Don from the mafia or some shit? Come on now, bro. Are you the Godfather?
You're not my dad. Like,
are you the Godfather right now? Like, what are you like? It's like, we need to have a talk about the D&D issue. Okay. Now, I didn't think it was entirely fair that you went and killed off my character and that you left all them other mooks alive like that. That's not gonna fly, my man. I need you to fix this. I need you to make it right. I need you to make it right now. It's like, what do you expect? Like, come on, bro.
yeah.
Like, this again, we the theme for today is definitely extreme narcissistic tendencies here. Extreme selfish or narcissistic tendencies here. A bunch of whiny punk ass wuss puss narcissists is really what it is, bro. All the whining, all of this. It's like, I get it, man. You don't have to whine, right? If you don't like something, if you disagree with something, then be a goddamn adult and have an actual legitimate constructive conversation about it. You can express yourself, you can express your feelings and be like, I mean, I kind of, you know, I feel like I still want to go on with this. I feel like, you know, is there a way that we can maybe, you know, work to bring them back? And like, you know, it's like, sometimes maybe you have to bite that bullet. Other times, hopefully your GM will be open to like working with you in order to get this back, you know. But whatever it is, stop whining, being selfish and just a wuss about it. Like, come on, man. Just be an adult. Have a real conversation. Please, people. And that goes for GMs too. Again, previous GMs that we talked about earlier today. Don't just let players walk all over your game that you work so hard on. Put your foot down. Like, have a conversation. That's another thing. Just have a conversation. And I get it. People are going to be like, well, I didn't want to do it during the session because it wastes time in the session. Well, this session's already going to shit anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, like, it doesn't really matter.
How are you really, is that a better trade-off for you to just be like, well, it's just going to go to shit, instead of maybe having a conversation for a second to maybe hopefully get things back on track to where you wanted them, or maybe even they should be. Like, just people need to be able to talk more and not just not not even talk, I should say, conversate. They should be able to listen and conversate more and better instead of just either not talking at all or just talking at other people about what they want, what they feel, and their shit. And it's like that. That just fucks me up, bro. Jesus, these fucking people that are just so goddamn selfish and narcissistic, where they're just like, it's not my fault. It's everyone else's problem. Oh, it's not my fault. I don't know the rules as the GM. Oh, it's unfair. You're doing a 6v1 and it's an encounter that I made. Oh, everyone but me died. Well, you need to fix that, GM. You should have made everyone die. Or da 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 da. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Because again, we don't have the entire context of the situation. To be fair, I get it. If you did die to a legitimately like kind of unfair, like encounter, yeah, that does suck. It does, But even then, sometimes even when sometimes it maybe is unfair, even then maybe sometimes you gotta swallow that shit and you gotta bite that bullet. You're gonna be like, all right, well, and move on. Let it go and move on. I know it sucks. It hurts, and it doesn't feel good. And if there is a way to remedy it, to fix it, great. But you got to do it the right way. Otherwise, sometimes you also maybe just got to be like, all right, let it go. Just let it go. Anything else you kind of got on this one, bud?
No, that was good. You had it all there. It's just ridiculous to me. Like, maybe it's just because like I've played with people that I like. If they are really like that, I'd call bullshit immediately. But
Yeah.
I just can't imagine willingly continuing to show up to things like this. You've talked about games where you're like, "What the fuck is this?" And you're like, "Yeah, but I came back to." I'm like, "Why?" No D&D is better than bad D&D. We've said 100 times. Like
I mean,
it is kind of ridiculous. Some
it
of
is.
these
I mean,
some
well,
of these like the way that people are like, this is how I'm gonna play this game. It's like, dude, what the fuck?
yeah. I mean, well, because again, it's like for me, I know from my experience, like when I was in the cringe campaign, like I kept going back because I was like, all right, that was some shit. But I would have conversations with the GM about it. I'd be like, yo, in my opinion, I felt like this was kind of not okay. Like this was kind of fucked. Like, like this is not the best way to be doing this. And he seemingly was receptive to that. He's like, okay, I see, I understand. Like, it's like this is not how this kind of is working or should be going. Like this is how this is more normally like conducted and utilized. People don't just not get a saving throw against some shit that's going to blow them up and deal like 100 points of damage. People don't just take 100 damage because the GM says so most of the time. Like that's not really okay. It's not fair. And it usually is going to breed a lot of kind of resentment or aggravation from your players because you're just basically arbitrarily telling them, yeah, fuck you. Like that doesn't really work, And it was like that's why I went back because we did have conversations and we did have discussions about like, hey, whatever. And this dude was clearly really messed up in a number of ways. Like, but he would show like genuine kind of like remorse or just like, like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, I get it, I understand, like, afterwards when we would talk and be like, all right, because of that, because it was like, all right, at least it seemed like he was legitimately trying to listen and to receive what I was saying. I was like, all right, if that's the case, I will give this another shot, because he gave out that he at least was trying. Now, the issue being is that, like there were a lot of other shit that happened and there's a certain line and limit that I'm not going to cross that I'm just done with. And he crossed that line. I was like, all right, it doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter like what, like this is just not okay at all with me. So I'm done anyway. And, so pretty sure that dude, again, the game that I played, he lost like freaking 4 or 5 players before I left, I think. And then he was trying to run like a multitude of other games too that he kept losing players for. And those games all collapsed. And then when I left, I saw like a little while later that he had posted like another like looking for players post like on D&D Beyond forums or whatever. And I was like, well, looks like that other campaign crumbled too. So it's just like Yeah, it's just like, all right, bro. Like, if you cannot, like, if after literally like 5 separate campaigns or whatever the hell,
Yeah,
all
there's
of them
something.
collapse and crumble, I would say there's probably only one real common variable there,
I wonder who it is.
and it's you.
Yeah, that's
Like,
crazy.
at the very least, maybe you should start considering that you're the problem.
It's me.
Hi,
I'm the
I'm the problem.
problem.
It's me. Jesus. All right. But with that, everybody, I think we're going to call it a day. Thank you so much for staying with us this long. If you have, we really do love and appreciate you. Be sure again to like and comment on the video. As you do, tell us what your thoughts are and your experiences. Subscribe and share the channel. It helps us out immensely. And we will be sure to catch you guys next time when we dive back down into the archive.
I guess.
So long, y'all.